Hello everyone, my name is Harrison Mwangi and welcome to today's session where we're going to continue from where we left at last time with test-driven development with Django. And as you can see in my bio, I have been doing something in web. I've done web for it's almost a year now. And the way I started out by participating in the DevC solution challenge. And that's where I didn't know Django by the time I was participating in the challenge. So I learned Django as I participated. And on to the next, I also participated in another community challenge, the Build for SDG one. And that's where we were put in a group of 4 and we are supposed to build a project. And as you know, Build for SDG was kind of a project in a partnership it was Andela partnering with Facebook developer circles to deliver that project. And as you know, all Andela programs usually want software to be built in following the software engineering principles, that is testing and such kind of things. And since I didn't know testing, I found it quite hard to contribute, and that's how I started learning TDD. And on to now, I've been trying to practice TDD, especially using Django. So I think that's kind of a good way to start. I can see Eric is already with us, so he can welcome you all, although I've welcomed you, and then we can proceed on to the code, because we had already done some few things last time. Yes.
Thank you guys for joining today's session. This is a part 2 of the previous one that we had with the same person, Harrison. And today will be, I think, the last session in test-driven development with Django. So I hope you guys will get something out of it and understand the dynamics of test-driven development in any field in software engineering. Yeah, thank you. Over to you, Harrison.
Okay, thank you. I can now try to share my screen, and maybe I'll go back to the code we wrote last time. It was in the TDD with Django repository. So I tend to think it's this one. So just a bit, I can move my, it's not this one. Yes, tend to think it's this one, opaque. Thank you. So it's kind of confusing for me because I have 2 repositories in the GitHub repo, in my GitHub repos. GitHub. So there are 2 repositories I want to work with. There's TDD with Django, and that's where we are going to write our code. Although I will rename it to opaque, since that's what our project is named. That's the name of our project, and we have the demos repository, which has an opaque folder. That's basically where we'll be getting our code snippets, and we did that last time. So feel free to follow along, and the main aim of having the demos repository was for you, the participants, to be able to follow along and write the code, so that you can write the code together and you can learn. So as we did last time, I hope you attended the last session, or at least you are familiar with what we handled last time from watching the video. The first thing I'll do is pull up my terminal, and I'll activate a virtual environment, which is ./env/scripts or for /activate. This for our Windows machine. And then I'm going to run python manage.py. Manage.py test, so that we can see where we left at last time. We had 3 tests, and I hope by the end of the session last time we were able to get all the tests passing, which are 2 unit tests and 1 functional test. I'm not sure. So let me kind of share everything so that you are able to see even the command, the code opening up the browser and everything. So let me go back to Zoom. Let me share everything on my screen. Yes. So let me run the tests again so that you can see the browser pulling up, the tests opening up the browser, and everything is okay as per last time. Just a very quick flash and we can see everything is okay. I'm assuming you are following along. So what's the first thing that we're gonna do? We are going to remind ourselves of what we want to build by reading through the user stories again, so that we know where we are and what we are going to add, what work is ahead of us basically. So I am going to go to the tests.py file in opac within the TDD. The repository is named TDD with Django, but right now I can name it opac to make to mine. Let me change it. The reason I decided to do it as you are during the session, so that you're able to follow along later. You don't get a 404 and you wonder why you're getting a 404 error. So I'm changing the repository name to opac. Yes, thank you. So I'm going to update the README later. So going back to the tests, the directory is opac, that is the root, and then within the opac, the app directory, that's where we're going to open the test.py and start reading the user story. So let me read it quickly and then we can continue to add the functionality. So Harrison is a student who would like to find some programming books to read so he can improve his software development skills. He visits the homepage of opac. He knows he's in the right place because he can see the name of the site in the heading. He sees the inputs of the search form, including labels and placeholders. He types in a subject and clicks the submit button. He sees too many search results, so he adds a particular author to his search query, and that continues on to the next line. So he adds a particular author to his search query and gets a more manageable list. He clicks on a search result, and the book page has the title, author, and a short description for this particular book. So whatsoever we have implemented is up to the site title, opening the browser, and when someone pulls up the homepage of the website, they are going to see the site title. So the next feature we are going to add, or the next functionality we are going to add, is the search form. including labels and placeholders. So I'm going to head straight to the other repository, the one called demos within the opac directory, and then I'm going to open tests.py in the same the app directory within the capital opac. And the first thing I'm going to do, since I'm using VS Code, so that I can kind of backtrack the features we want to add, we want to add the form elements. And according to what we discussed last time, TDD is all about, maybe we can summarize it in 3 words: red, green, refactor. So you write tests and then you add functionality to make the tests pass, and then you refactor to improve the code quality. So I'm going to copy this code up to here. Let me say within the inputs of the search form, and then up to there. And then we are going to see what we need to add. So I'm going to just copy that and add it here. And that's done. So now if we can, I'm sorry, my indentation is quite wrong. So I have to double check that, and I can see now we have what we wanted. We can run the tests again, and this time they should fail. Reason being, we don't have the search form. So heading straight to the terminal and running the tests again, and this time there should be an error. Reason being, it's trying the tests are trying to find elements that are not in the page. Let's wait for that to fail. And let me come back here. Yes, I can see it gives us an error. Unable to locate element input hash opac subject. So basically, we are trying to get that element with an input with an ID of opac subject, and we haven't done that yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of cheat this time, and I'm going to just add the form. Sorry, I'm not going to add some fake things. So in the capital opac directory, there is the index.html file that we created last time, but now we didn't include this form. And I'm going to copy the form and add it to this index.html here. As you can see, we didn't add the form last time. So let me add the form, and this time the test should pass. The tests are passing, and I want us to, since I kind of like to commit the features that I added, there is one feature that we haven't yet tested, the submit button, and that's what I want to. I'm sorry, I kind of skipped that. Well, and we are supposed to just add the code that is needed. So I'm going to go back to the test.py file, and I'm going to take the code that tests the submit button. So, and that's it. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, since I've added the tests, then the button should be clickable. So we have added the search form, and this time the test should still pass, although I kind of skipped that, but it should have gone together. And just wait for the browser to open up and everything. Yes, and the test should pass, and then can add the feature. I can commit. Since we are using Git, we agreed to be using Git to do the version control. So I'll do a Git commit -am. That means instead of just adding all the files and then committing in 2 lines of code, I'll just do it in 1 line of code. So you can say git commit added search form in homepage, search form in index.html. That should be it. And we agreed now that feature is done and tested. Let me say done and dusted, sorry. So we can move on to the next bit of the user story. So here he sees too many search results. So he has a particular order to his search query. But those people who aren't aware of what we are building an online public access catalog for a library. And basically, most catalogs have a search field, and then you can search a book, and then you get some search results, and then you can click the one of the elements to see the particular details of that book. So that's what we want to implement in this part of the user story. So I'm going to add the tests first, and by adding the tests first, luckily we've got some templates. So I'm going to add these. Actually, let me add both of these so that we can, since this functionality is closely tied to this, it's all in one line but broken down in 2 different lines. So that's one functionality. That's the same functionality that we want to test about filtering the data in the database, okay, the catalog. So again, as we discussed last time, we are going to test, and then we are going to add the code and then refactor. So I'm going to run the tests, and this should give me an error since the elements the functionality I'm looking for is not there. We have the search form, but it's not working. It's just it's just some HTML. There's no functionality that's being implemented. Sorry. I copied something wrong. So you're going to forgive me for this. I'm going to still add yes. Let me come back to this commit in the demos directory, in the demos repository, sorry, within OPAC directory. There is this commit message that I did. Of course, I did some refactoring, and that's what is giving me the error you can see here, that student test case has no attribute find search results. You're going to see that in a bit. Okay, so think this time it should give me an error, and the error we want, that is, it didn't find the correct number of search results. Yes, and I think that's what we want. Find elements by CSS selector, opaque search results. So there are no such results already. And as we said last time, we just need to implement the functionality that just makes the tests to pass. And so I'm going to do something, as we saw last time, we just need to do something that will make the tests pass, not necessarily being something that's correct. So I'm going to come here within the index.html file, in the other repository, the demo repository. I'm going to pick this commit message, added form elements, and this is what we need. We need some fake search results now, and that will make the tests pass. One of the tests pass, actually. So quickly, I just added that, and that will make the test to pass. One of the tests to pass, actually. So I expect that in this first code block, I'm sorry, I rushed. So the first thing, let me kind of backtrack. We are looking for the inputs of the search form, and we are getting it by ID. We are getting two inputs, the input and the label for each input. So an input with an ID of opaque subject, and it should have a label, and it should also have a placeholder. So there should be a label for the input, and there should be a placeholder. And also for the other input, it's still the same thing. We are finding the input by ID, and we are asserting that the input, the label is not, there is a label. When we say assert is not none. And then we are also testing to see that the other input has a placeholder, and that placeholder is this exact placeholder, e.g. Jane. And on to the next code block. He types in a subject and submits and clicks the submit button. We are looking for search results. So I mixed you up, and I'm really sorry for this. Let me go back. I'm missing some few things. It's because I wrote these last time. So so we need to test to get the person to click the button, and to this is what I skipped as I was trying to copy things over, although I had added it earlier, and that's why Git is still helping me figure out what I did wrong. Thank you. So I didn't change anything. So I just added some tests now. So this is okay. So we are testing that someone can type in something in the inputs and send the form. And after sending the form, the application is going to filter the results. It's going to filter by whatsoever parameters we have input. We have input either the author or the subject or both. And that's what we are doing here. And after filtering, the server is going to return some results. and that's what we are testing here. So we are asserting that the search results, the length of the search results is greater than 2. That means there is at least some many search results here, as we say in the user story. He sees too many search results. So let me just run the tests, and we are going to see that. And this time, the test should pass after adding the testing that the search results. These first tests will pass since there are some fake search results. But what functionality do you want to implement? The filtering. This second code block about adding another input. Here we input the subject, and here they are filtering by both the subject and the author. So we expect the results to reduce, and that's usually the case. And since we did some fake search results, we are going to this second test should not pass, and essentially we haven't added filtering, and that feature isn't available, and that's why the test will pass. The test will fail. Sorry. So I'm running my tests. So with the fake search results, the first test will pass, but the second will fail. I think you saw that, although it was a bit quick. So let's check the error message. Instead of an error, we get fail, meaning the test didn't pass, and it means something is amiss. Sorry. So in line 65, we are asserting that the length of the filtered search results is 2. Here we are testing that the filtered search results is greater than 2. So that means we expect the search results to reduce. Okay, so now we kind of try to circumvent the implementing that feature, but according to the TDD, we did it right. Implement the minimum amount of code needed to make the test pass, but now we are finding ourselves in trouble because of faking things. So I'm going to just do a commit now, and then we can implement the feature since it might involve several things. So git commit -am. I'm going to commit that I added tests for filtering and some fake search results, and that should be it. So on to the next thing. So now having dynamic results requires us to have something where we should get this information from the database and filter the information from a particular database, and that requires us to implement a model, and probably we might adjust our view to be able to implement that search filtering functionality. And so the first thing we are going to kind of leave these tests like that for quite some time, and we are going to move over to like the books application. We were in OPAC. This test.py is in OPAC, and we are going to kind of move to the books, and the first thing we are going to do is to create a test for our model, because that's what is going to store the information about the books. So I'm going to add test models.py. I am not sure. No, that should not be in OPAC. It should be in this test directory within within books. So that there it is. Sorry. So the first thing I'm going to do, let it stay there. The first thing I'm going to do is head over to the demos repository, and I'm going to take the code for testing models, and this is quite lengthy, but let's add it, and then wow. And then I can add, after adding these tests to the test models.py, I'm going to run the tests again, and this time they should fail. And by failing, it means we have to implement the models. Sorry, I'm running the tests in the wrong directory. Okay, let me see. Okay, it's good. So I should see a failure from the functional test and an error from the unit test that we just added. So cannot import name book from books.models. So exactly, we needed some information. That's very useful information. So that means we should head over to the models.py file and create a model. And since, let's see, sorry, let me just write class book inherits from models.model, and if I tell it to pass, the test should still fail, but I should at least have that input error resolved. Wow. So it gives us another error. No such table, books _ book. So that means there is no migration, basically, since there is no table that has been created in the database, because the tables are created after you run the migrations. So at this point in time, I would like us to do one thing. I would run the migrations by Python manage.py make migrations, and let's test. And this time we should not get such kind of a database error, and this time everything is failing. Wow. And I should also get that is working. So so that I can be able to filter the errors, we know the failure is in the functional test. So let me just run the tests only within the books app. So test, I'm going to take the test from books.test let me just run the whole application, since I don't think there is anything wrong with that. So we are getting 5 errors, and in these 5 errors, one of them is book got an unexpected keyword argument title, and all that is in the setup class of the test. So basically that means we don't have that attribute, and that's what is causing these errors. So let's head straight over to the other repository, the demos repository, and I'm going to just take everything in the models.py file and add it to this models.py in opac. So, and this time I'm going to run migrations again. Python manage.py make migrations. So I'm going to add a default value and let me just add null. I'm not sure. No, none. I think none is a Python function. One, none, one, none, one, and I'm going to add none, and it added all the fields, and I can now test to see whether the tests are passing, and all the tests are passing. Basically that means we implemented everything correctly. So let me take you through the unit tests in models, and then I can call it, we can wind up with the views, and then we can call it a day. So the setup class creates the objects that are going to be used in the test. And here we are creating a book object that is a book with a title, author, subject, and description. And we, in the test book basic method, since within the book model test case class is going to test the basic functionality of book, that is the title, the author, the subject, and the description, to test if those features are working correctly. And then I'm going to test the meta attributes of each and every field that I added, since I find it easier to test the meta of each field within its own function. So I'm going to test whether the title has a maximum length of 100 characters and it's not null and it cannot be blank. The author, I'm going to basically test each and everything that we tested earlier. The field name, I'm going to assert that the verbose name is author. The max length is 50, the null is false and blank is false. I'm going to test that the subject matter is subject. The field name is subject, the max length is 50, null is false, blank is false. And since all these fields rely on the char field, that's why they are having like similar tests. So even the text field has usually the same attributes, but it supports longer text, and that's why we are testing its attributes in relatively the same way. So from there, I'm going to add a view and then a template, a view, and then we can add the filtering functionality. And actually, it's not adding a view, it's modifying the index view to filter the search results, since that's what we need to do. So I'm going to head straight to the test views.py within the demos repository. And then I'm going to come back to this commit, and we are going to test two things. I'm going to test whether the index view, the basic functionality still works. And now I'm going to add this method for testing whether the books, the index, the homepage can return search results which are books. So test views.py, and I'm going to just copy paste everything, and Git does a nice job of showing me what changed. And yes, I think that's done. So this time I should run the test, and then the test should fail, and then we are going to implement the functionality in the view, in the index view, and then we're going to call it a day. And I'm going to test books since we are still within the books application. And wow, it gives me a key error in line 83. Wow. So line 56 in test index view returns books. So that means our index view, we are getting this key error since there is no context currently. Our function-based view doesn't have a context variable, and so I'm going to simply come here and add that context variable. And as we know in Django, we just add a dictionary. Let me add the books. Let me just call it none, like that. And this time it shouldn't give us that key error again. Class none type is not class query set. So this time we are forced to kind of implement the feature. So we should really be querying the database. So I'm going to head straight to the views.py file, and I'm going to add this context variable and show you how to filter and remove this small dictionary and add the context here. So let me just type context, and with that improved functionality, I think the test should still not pass. Book is not defined, so I forgot to import the books from .models import book, and run the tests once again, and this time they should pass, and I can now commit. There are two migrations. We are going to handle that later. So I'm going to git add all since there are new files, and then I can say git commit dash message is added the books model. I added the model and modified and added and a filter in index view. And basically that's it, and we can move on to running all the tests. Let's run the tests, the whole test suite, and see whether everything is working as expected. And this time the first search results, since we don't have, oops, the test will still fail. Reason being, we didn't modify the context. So let's head straight away to the index.html and copy the functionality from this other index.html, and now it should be like this without the links. And I'm going to add this, adding the filtering for book in books. I'm going to add that for loop and create the search results dynamically. That's better. And this time I have dynamic search results, but we are filtering on only one search field. So it still won't work. We are almost there, but not yet there. So I'm going to, yes. So we are not even getting the search results. Self data set greater 0 is not greater than 2. So let me go back to the views again, and so I'm going to change, since time is almost up, I'm just going to head over straight and take the whole test for views, since I'm going to think I added all this in the test views. Yes, it's okay. So what's remaining is implementing that functionality for filtering. So I'm going to come back here and take this whole set and I'm going to add it here in views, context equals books. This time we are filtering on either condition. We are filtering on either the subject or the author. So we are going to get all the books if the person doesn't enter anything, and we are going to return the list of books matching that particular subject if there is a subject, and we are going to filter for the books with a particular author if there is that, or if an author is input, and add that to the query set. And then that should be it. That should make the views to pass. And the reason this time the views are not passing, reason being, I forgot one very important thing: setting up the test data in these tests. And I'm going to head over straight over to the test. I'm going to close some of these files since we are not using them. And I'm going to add Going to this commit message of adding filtering, and I'm going to just add this test data. Actually, from here, and then I'm going to import the book model. So, wow. So, I usually like to set it there. So from books dot model import book, and that should be it. And this functionality has been implemented correctly and is properly tested, and that should be it.
Oh, awesome. So, thank you so much, Harrison. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So, thank you so much for that session. Okay, I think a lot of guys do development, but they forget the part of testing. They forget that testing is also a critical part when it comes to software development. And I really thank you for taking us through that session. Actually, I'm not a good guy. Okay, I haven't done testing because I never loved it at all, because I can't saw it as adding a lot of boilerplate code in my code, but at least I can see the sense of writing tests for your system, may it be web or mobile or either server-side system that you're building. So thank you for the session, and because I don't see any questions from the audience, so we can call it a day. And just was this the last session or the last part of what you had left, or that you have covered everything today?
Okay, this is just a start. And as you say, so many people overlook this. And I think the main aim of this session was to kind of try and complete that functional test, although I haven't been able to complete it to the completion. But I think it's a good point to start for everyone who wants to do testing. I want to refer some book that I read, so that at least by the time anyone that anyone that watches this recording is able to follow along or kind of learn testing, because it's a very broad, it's like trying to learn a whole programming language. You can't learn it in 2 sessions. So I have a PDF here. I usually store it in, there's this book, Test Driven Development with Django. It's a nice read. Actually, it's the one that I have adapted some of the main project to suit this series of talks. Check it out. It's a really good book, but one of the things that you should watch out is the Django versions. They use Django 2, and here I'm using Django 3. So in case of any issues you have, you can reach out to me. And the other book that I recommend is this one. Although I haven't read it, but from the reviews that I've seen, it's also a good book. Test-driven development with Python. Obey the testing code using Django, Selenium, and JavaScript. It's a good book to kind of take your time and read.